All right, hello everybody, and welcome to yet another spoiler-tastic episode of Non Sequitur Nerds. I am Tim, and joined, like always, by my buddy Ian. Ian, how you doing tonight?
Hey, we're doing pretty good. It's finally the weekend.
Oh yeah.
We have reached the end of another television stream-o-vision milestone
Yes, we have.
in our lives. So it's pretty good. And also joining us tonight, you may remember him from the Mandalorian special. We have my brother Keenan. Keenan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Hey, everybody.
Howdy,
I'm back.
Keenan.
Happy to be back.
Well, happy to
Alrighty,
have you on here.
So tonight, folks, we have a action-packed, fun-filled episode, and by action-packed, we mean you're just going to sit there and listen to us talk about this.
Do some backflips, light something on fire, make your own special effects.
Exactly.
Juggle something on fire.
Right. Wait, do you want them to juggle while they are on fire, or juggle a thing that is on fire?
Why not both? Everything's on fire.
I'm easy to please,
Well, we know. We've talked to your wife.
Oh.
Anyway, so tonight, ladies and germs, we are going to be covering WandaVision, the Marvel smash hit that is streaming on Disney Plus. Has just wrapped up as of today. It's limited series. Yes, today was at least according to the title in Disney Plus, the series finale. So there will not be another season of WandaVision. But I think based on the conversation tonight, probably understand why.
Now that being said, like we said in our last spoiler episode, spoilers abound. So if you have not watched the ending of WandaVision, what is wrong with you, for starters? But two, go watch it. Seriously, go and watch it. Binge the series. It is all up and available on Disney Plus as of right now.
Yep. So, with that fair warning, we will give you 5 seconds of awkward silence where you can pause the podcast and then go and binge binge WandaVision on Disney Plus, or borrow a friend's Disney Plus and binge it on their stuff, or just find somebody that's got like a Plex server and has managed to somehow download WandaVision. Whatever you have to do, go watch it. We will give you 5 seconds of silence to pause us, and then we will move on to the spoiler-tastic episode. So, ready and...
Silence.
And we're done. All right, moving on.
5 seconds of silence.
Yes, moving on. All right, guys. So, WandaVision. This was I believe, 9-episode series.
Yep.
From Marvel Entertainment, based on the Marvel MCU. Events post Avengers Endgame. Follows Wanda as
but pre-Spider-Man Far From Home. That's important to remember.
Yes, pre-Spider-Man Far From Home. Well, again, based upon my understanding of the timeline, I think they said this takes place about 3 weeks, 2 weeks after...
It's a matter of weeks after the events of Endgame. Yep.
Right, and I think
Far From Home was like a couple months, if I remember right.
It's like half a year or something, I believe. Yeah,
and if I remember, well, I had a thought, but so, thinking about it a little bit more, this actually is kind of a good thing for the MCU, because if you remember, Endgame takes place 5 years, I think, after Infinity War.
Yep.
So now, the Avengers or the MCU is about, I don't know, it was about, well, really 4 years ahead of where we were in the real world. So by doing these kind of things, and maybe this is also thanks to the coronavirus global pandemic, we're able to kind of catch up in real life to the MCU timeline, so there's not such a large time disparity between the two, between real life and MCU life.
Right. Valid point.
And assuming, a lot of the early movies, I think like Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Thor all take place within like the same week, or at the very least the same month in the MCU. So they could try and condense the movies into a really tight time span. That way they can try and keep it in that part of the future as much as possible so that we can kind of catch up as well.
And that could also make, like, I mean, because if you've seen any of the Marvel films, you know they're great about dropping stuff from one into another movie. Having the movies take place so close together could also make more of an impact on those events, you know, in more real time. So you can see what's happening, you know, when movie X is happening, here's what's happening at that same point in movie Y, and how do they influence each other.
Right. It's also kind of a clever way of doing the whole, well, why doesn't this character pop up to help this character? Well, that's
Right.
because that character is busy doing their own thing at the same time. So.
Right, and then there's the obvious thing of why doesn't Captain America help out in WandaVision? Well, because he's old as hell now.
Right.
So, hey, this isn't just WandaVision spoilers; it's Avengers spoilers. But if you haven't seen Endgame at this point, then
I'm pretty sure we're out of the statute of spoilers on that one.
Well, my thing is, if you haven't watched MCU movies yet since they've been out for over 10 years,
Yeah.
they're just probably not your thing. Like, there's
Yeah.
no point in bothering to catch up. Like, if you haven't decided to join the bandwagon now, you're kind of a decade late. So.
Like, I mean, the only thing I could think of is if for whatever reason, you know, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Doctor Strange, Hulk, you know, Captain Marvel, if none of the characters they've made movies about so far are your thing, and you're just holding out for that one obscure, like if you're waiting for the Squirrel Girl movie, okay, I can. There's people calling for it, but like if your favorite character hasn't shown up yet, I could kind of understand it. But any new properties they introduce at this point are gonna tie into the larger story.
Yeah, that's the problem. You
Yeah.
can't, if you're holding out for a character, you're even the.
I'm holding out for a hero.
You could have gotten you could have gotten away with it maybe during when there was the Netflix shows with like
Right.
Daredevil and Jessica Jones, because they were very barely tangentially related to the MCU. So you
Yeah.
could have been like, oh, I'm a Daredevil fan, and you could watch that without necessarily having the interconnection.
That's true.
But even they're probably going to get. I've heard a lot of rumors that the Charlie Cox, who played Matt Murdock in that series, is going to appear as Peter Parker's lawyer in No Way Home.
Yeah, which, yeah, by the way, if you haven't heard yet, the new Spider-Man film is No Way Home.
Which,
Yes, there
I
you
will
go.
have to
Spoiler.
say this: the trailer, the reveal of that was hilarious in my opinion, because
what do
they're
you mean I spoil
openly
things?
they're openly it is not the characters, it is the actors
Yep.
talking about the movie, and Tom Holland, who is British, is speaking with his normal British accent, speaking with the lady that plays MJ, and then the kid, the other kid, I can't remember his actual name.
Zendaya. I don't remember, or Zendaya. I don't remember the other kid's name.
Ned.
Yeah. Anyway, talking about how Tom Holland spoils movies, and they won't tell him the title of the movie, and then it's written on a whiteboard as they walk by. But anyway, so very, very fun, tongue-in-cheek humor from Marvel, who I think are very good at that kind of thing. They're really meta. They're very self-aware. But when you make as much freaking money as Marvel property does right now,
Yeah.
you can. I mean, the best thing that Disney did was basically say, Kevin Feige, do whatever the hell you want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Just keep printing money for us. We're just the House of Mouse is gonna sit here. We're gonna write you a check every so often, but we're getting 10x returns on what they pay for. So
Oh, easily.
right,
Yes.
the House of Mouse owns probably 4 of the biggest biggest powerhouse studios in the industry right now. Disney itself, Pixar Animation, Lucasfilm, and Marvel Comics and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, everything Marvel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they have, and now, of course, Fox, everything Fox.
Yep.
So we will potentially, and hopefully, actually, we won't potentially, we will see those properties that the Marvel properties that were licensed to Fox now come back into the MCU. They're already planning a Fantastic Four movie.
Yes.
Dear God, don't let them butcher Doctor Doom again.
Like, no villain in superhero movie history has been shat on as much as Doctor Doom. He is such a nuance.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
Wait,
I'm gonna let you finish, but
what do you got?
did you see the way they portrayed Lex Luthor in Like, come on! That wasn't even Lex Luthor. That was awkward
Jesse
Jesse
Eisenberg being Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, I
Right.
hated everything about the Jesse Eisenberg thing. I'm not even going to refer to it as
Okay,
Lex
let me
Luthor, whatever that was supposed to be.
They haven't been repeatedly shat on.
Yeah.
As much as Doctor Doom.
I don't know. The Kevin Spacey Lex Luthor was kind of bad too. But anyway, we are getting
we're here to talk about WandaVision, guys.
way off. Anyway, so moving back to WandaVision, 10 minutes later, we're not going to cover the entire season tonight like we did with Mando season 2. We hope you enjoyed the special. That was a lot of fun for us to record.
Oh yeah.
But that was
we all immediately went to sleep afterwards.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, final season or final episode of WandaVision, we see the obvious, the episode before we saw the reveal of Agatha Harkness, who was, theorized to be who that was.
It was Agatha all along.
Right.
So,
which
great
jingle.
Oh yeah.
Great jingle. Catherine Hahn does
amazing,
a really good job as this villain, and I'm very impressed and very happy with her casting in that role. Agatha is in and of herself in the Marvel Comics universe. She's not a bad guy, but she's not a good guy either. She's kind of
she has both been an enemy to the Scarlet Witch and the Avengers as well as an ally. It's just however she's feeling that day.
She's mostly self-serving. Whatever serves her interest the best.
Right. So, we get the reveal of Agatha. We get the titular fight between Agatha and Scarlet Witch, or Wanda.
Who is now officially called the Scarlet Witch.
Yes, officially called the Scarlet Witch, thanks to the, I don't know, I'm going to call it the Necronomicon because I can't remember the name of the book.
The Darkhold.
The Darkhold.
Yeah, sure, that thing. Necronomicon. This is my boomstick.
Klaatu Barakto Victo!
So, casting wise, I think the series did a spot on job with the casting.
Oh yeah.
Agatha is great. Obviously, we see the return of Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen as their title characters.
Yep.
And of course, then we see, and I can't remember the actor's name, but we see the Fox Cinematic Universe, X-Men universe version of Quicksilver show up as well.
Evan Peters.
Evan Peters, who is not actually Quicksilver, but it was fun. It was a fun wink and a nod, but it doesn't mean...
I have thoughts on that.
Go ahead. What do you got?
So, okay, I thought when I don't know about you, Tim, but when Ian and I we talked after, or we watched the episode together, and after it ended, when they first showed the Evan Peters Quicksilver, we were just like, oh my god, this completely changes the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and is a hilarious, brilliant way to bring in the Fox properties. We thought that Wanda either subconsciously or purposely, drew a alternate reality version of her brother because she wanted him back, but she couldn't bring him back to life, but she could bring back a Quicksilver, and therefore brought over the Fox version of him. And I thought that was a cool way, and that could be, the tearing down maybe of interdimensional barriers would be a way to bring in the X-Men. You just keep, and you could do it in bring over the characters or the actors that are popular, such as Evan Peters' portrayal of Quicksilver was popular.
Oh yeah,
and then recast the ones that you don't like. So
like
you could
Sophie Turner as Jean Grey.
See, and I liked her in Game of Thrones. I did not like her Jean Grey. But no,
she played a good surviving victim who eventually becomes strong in her own right in Game of Thrones. But she was just so deadpan.
A lot of the characters in the newer Fox movies were, they were just not emotive. They felt very stale. So her in particular, she was pretty. And I think she was trying to portray the whole, I'm burdened with great powers, so I have to kind of restrain myself thing, which is just not an interesting character type to me, really. Anyway, and
Yeah.
I mean, there's ways that you could do it, but she kind of overdid it, and I think they
just
played into that a little
haven't
too much.
gotten a good Jean Grey, like, period, in the X-Men films.
I like
You know,
Famke Jensen. She just I
Yeah.
don't think she had much to
she
do.
she did a decent job, but I feel like they played her when she became Phoenix in X-Men 3. I feel like she became just this overtly sexualized, like, sexual Phoenix, and that's not really like the driving force of the Phoenix Force.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
the Phoenix Force is not this intercosmic horny bird.
it's not a succubus.
Right.
Yeah.
So the fact that
I'm
Horny
sorry,
bird.
just the descriptor you gave. Intercosmic horny bird.
so,
that's
I
gonna
mean,
be
something from Futurama. It'd
That's
be like
a
on a
spoiler.
billboard
That's
there.
the next MCU film. Intercosmic horny bird. But no, going back to what you were saying, Keenan. No, I had the exact same thought because it's been confirmed that Elizabeth Olsen, Scarlet Witch, is going to be in Doctor Strange 2: Multiverse of Madness. So that was my thought, was this is Wanda opening, these interdimensional portals and whatnot.
Or at least
opening
a
up the
hint of
multiverse.
that.
Yeah, or kind of
Well,
alluding to that. But
I think.
go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to step on you, but I think we can hold on to that thought because we can cover that here as we get through the episode. I think.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the discussion. So, kind of jumping back towards the beginning of the episode, we see Wanda starting to engage with Agatha, and then we see White Vision engaging with Soulstone Apparition Vision,
Which was
the
a
Hex
fun...
Vision.
Yeah, the Hex Vision.
Hex Vision.
The White Vision was a really good callback to the comics because, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, his original appearance, he was all white, wasn't he? Or at least one of his costumes, he was all white like that.
I don't know if
I
it was
don't
his
remember if
original,
it was
but
his
it
original.
was. Yeah, he was white. He was white or gray for a period of time.
I think if I remember correctly, at one point his memory was wiped or erased in some way, and then that caused him to lose his color. And then for like a period of time, he was basically he essentially had his memory gone, and he was just a white amnesiac basically version of himself until he eventually got his memory color restored.
See, it looks like, if I'm doing a quick Google search here, his first appearance as White Vision was in West Coast Avengers number 45, if I'm looking at this right.
Okay.
So, I mean, it wasn't his first appearance, it doesn't look like. But no,
Right.
he was all white in the comics for a while, which is a nice little, throwback to that.
Right. So, I mean, it was good. It was fun seeing Vision basically fight himself. So this, it's kind of this roboticized, not Sonic the Hedgehog roboticized, but soulless, emotionless Vision. Controlled by. Do you guys remember RoboCop 2 when they reprogrammed RoboCop and he was just like.
So, funny story about that. I recently watched all the RoboCop films as well as the RoboCop made-for-TV films in like 2 days.
Oof.
My wife was like, "Why are you torturing yourself?"
Yeah,
RoboCop 1 was.
Yeah.
RoboCop 1 was good.
Okay then. What was that? Hello?
Yeah, I don't know. What was that?
I don't know. Apparently, something I said triggered my Google Home to think that I was asking about roofers.
I was gonna say I heard something about a roof, and I'm like, none of you live with
I don't
a British
remember
woman.
saying anything about that, but all right, cool.
Anyway.
You do you, Google. I mean, they already monitor pretty much everything that I say anyway at this point, so I'm sure tomorrow when I log into email, I'm gonna get like 47 emails about roofing companies and whatnot. So anyway, hi Ted. I'm naming the guy that listens to all of my Google recordings Ted. So hi Ted. Anyway, so going back to what we were talking about, one of the things that I thought was really cool as well is and interesting to me is obviously White Vision doesn't have the Soul Stone. He's
Right.
powered by kind of the leftover Soul Stone energy from Wanda.
Yeah, I guess
Um,
he'd be powered by chaos magic, the way they explain it.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's interesting to me that he still has like the forehead laser, because I'm kind of curious like how they power that. Because obviously in the other stuff, it's powered by the Soul Stone, because that's where the Soul Stone is, or not the Soul Stone. I'm sorry, the Mind Stone.
You know, it's
I imagine that in the
stolen Stark tech.
process, yeah, I imagine that in
Probably.
the process of reconstructing his body, they added some kind of I don't know how to put it, like a mechanical heart or something, or they reconstructed it,
Right.
and it once you got some kind of initial energy to power it, maybe it just like an actual living person, it's self-sustaining and kind of creates its own energy.
That could be neat.
So maybe he just has some kind of external power now that can generate that energy, or not external.
I mean,
internal
it's
power
probably
Yeah.
goes back to that mix of chaos magic and the Mind Stone, you know, to do that. But yeah, so I mean, the fight between them was really cool. We see them phasing in and out of each other, flying
Which
around.
fun thing about that scene, a while back, Paul Bettany did an interview and he said that there was an actor, there's a big cameo in it, and this is after the Evan Peters reveal. He said there's another big cameo in this. It's an actor that I have always wanted to share the screen with, and I think fans are going to love it. So everybody was going, oh, you know, are they bringing in another Marvel character? Are they introducing one of the new one? Are they recasting a Fox character and putting them in here as a little teaser? You know, like people are just going out of their minds. It was himself. He got to share the screen with himself.
That's
Yes,
I don't
and
know
Because it's an
I don't know
actor
if
he
that's
always wanted to share the screen with, and he shared the screen with himself.
I
It
don't
was
know if
him
that's
having a laugh.
narcissistic or just
it
you
was-
know, a good tongue in cheek.
It was Paul Bettany having a laugh, and you know what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good on you, sir. That was worth it.
He actually revealed on Good Morning America today that he did meet himself and he was intentionally trying to troll people, so I think that's funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that fight was really fun. It was also interesting to see the I'll, for lack of a better term, I'll say the Maximov kids. You know, Billy and
Tommy.
other twin, Tommy. There we
Yep.
go.
Billy and Tommy.
Billy and Tommy being able to utilize their powers. You know, they're kind of magicked up powers, obviously, but
Right.
because it's very much a nod to their powers in the Marvel Comics universe. They were known as Wiccan and I think Speed.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the Marvel Comics universe, where again Speed had Pietro's powers, he was very quick, and Wiccan had Wanda's powers, where he had the ability to use magic. So
Yeah.
to me, that was a really nice
foreshadowing.
nod.
Oh yeah.
Right, it was a really nice nod, really nice foreshadowing, and again, because we're a spoiler-filled episode, Keenan, I think you were telling me about the potential casting of those characters in a upcoming movie.
So I've been watching a lot of like Screen Rant and a channel called Heavily Spoilers and some other channels, giving their own theories and thoughts. I've been watching it after every episode and getting kind of their input, and they also give
Same.
some interesting like news as well that I wouldn't have normally found. And so one of the channels theorized that they are potentially going to be building into a Young Avengers, because the actress Haley Steinfeld, who was in the movie True Grit, like the remake that the Coen brothers did a few
Mhm.
years back, she was announced as playing
Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop for the Hawkeye show.
Oh, cool.
And she is a member of the Young Avengers, and also Wiccan and Speed are members of the Young Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of seems that 3 out of the 5 or 6 original members being confirmed to exist kind of makes it seem like that they might be building toward that. And then also I saw that I guess the child actors that play Tommy and Billy posted on their Instagrams that they were both in London, and that is currently where Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is being filmed. So that seems to kind of suggest that if they're there at the current time it's being filming, and based especially how this episode ends,
yeah,
that they very well might appear within that movie, and still as kids, but who knows, they might age up again.
I can see that working out really good, actually.
So I think that kind of leads into something here. In the in the fight between Wanda and Agatha, Agatha mentions that Wanda is the Scarlet Witch, who is, quote, more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
So obviously making direct reference to Doctor Strange, who is the Sorcerer Supreme.
Mm-hmm.
But and this is going to be kind of a callback to one of the two end credit scenes. Which, again, if you're watching this, if you're listening to us at this point, you should have known that there were end credit scenes. If not, then what the hell? Anyway, so that kind of calls back to one of the end credit scenes where Wanda hears the voices of her kids.
Yep.
So to me, this seems like good foreshadowing for Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness.
Oh,
where
absolutely.
I feel like, based upon the call to Doctor Strange, the mention of the breadth of Wanda's power, and then these voices that she's hearing, as well as the fact that she's reading the Necronomicon after. I told you I'm going to refer to it as that throughout the rest of this podcast. Reading the Necronomicon after while she's hearing this leads me to believe that Wanda herself will likely open these portals to the multiverse in her attempt to get her kids back.
I can see
Right.
that. I can see that.
So there could be, like a reality in which they truly did exist and they weren't just a creation, an artificial creation within the hex, or perhaps their essence, like they are. Maybe she truly created original beings that didn't exist in any other, alternate universe.
Mm-hmm.
But once the hex got destroyed, perhaps they live in some kind of spiritual sort of form throughout the multiverse. And so maybe that, yeah, I agree. I think it is a setup that her desire to bring her kids into reality and find them, and they're sort of, actually, it's funny that we were talking about the Phoenix Force. I feel like the way that they're describing her feels very Phoenix Force kind of. It gives me that vibe that she is this person with some kind of, that has this ancient power bestowed upon her that she doesn't quite know how to control, and
Right.
that she might accidentally, unleash the power of the Scarlet Witch, and Doctor Strange will have to come in and
yeah.
perhaps be
Well-
adversarial toward her. They might be kind of fighting against each other, and then probably will have to team up and fight some greater evil.
Nightmare.
I mean,
Gonna call it.
yeah,
It's gonna be Nightmare.
they kind of talk about, or hint at some of these other eventualities and things like that, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe has an official universe number in Marvel canon, which is universe 1999999.
Yeah.
So which the central core Marvel universe in the comics is known as Earth 616 is the central where everything started
Yeah.
as far as
The
Marvel comics
mainline story in the comics.
Right. So Marvel, in and of itself, has acknowledged that there are other universes, and they've acknowledged that the MCU technically does exist within that continuity as Earth 616, because it is its own universe, parallel universe. So there is still the potentiality of being able to pull that in. Now, as far as I know, they haven't assigned a universe number to the Fox properties because there was no cinematic universe that Marvel could lay claim to until Disney finished their buyout of Fox. But
I think that I might be wrong, but I think that since the buyout has been finalized, they did assign it a number. I remember vaguely reading that somewhere, but if I remember right, it was listed as a dead universe. Which
so
makes
it looks
sense
like
because those
it looks
stories
like
will continue.
it looks like, based upon a quick Google search, the official, well, not official, but the Marvel.fandom.com lists that universe as Earth 10,005.
Okay.
So it does have a universe, but you're likely correct. And also, a fun trivia fact for you: 10,005 is a zip code in New York City where the first film took place in that universe.
That's a cool little nod.
Yeah, that's fun. So anyway, there's still the possibility, and I think it will lead. The fact that Wanda is in the the next Doctor Strange movie will likely open up the possibilities for these multiverses, and also then in turn pull over other universes, characters, other continuities. That's probably, we'll probably see the return of Black Widow for that. I think I think she may come back in the Loki TV series
It's
based upon trailers.
well, from what people have said, because I think I know what scene you're, where it looks like she's sitting on a rock.
Yeah, and kind of like a
Yeah.
hazy
Uh,
inside of the Soul Stone
Yeah,
type universe.
apparently that's been confirmed to be, and the actress's name escapes me, but in the Black Widow film, the other assassin, the blonde one, her name
Oh,
escapes
Her
me.
Florence
sister.
Pugh is the
Yeah,
actress name, and then
yes, thank you.
her character name is like Beklova or something like that.
Yeah, apparently it's been confirmed that that's her. At least that's what Marvel's saying, but you know how Marvel is about misdirection.
Right. Haha, classic misdirection.
Well, I mean, you could go back to all the Endgame and Infinity War
Yes.
speculation that the Gamora and Black Widow, since they were sacrificed to get the Soul Stone, live in Soul World or within the Soul Stone itself.
Hanging
And I
out
guess
with Adam
since
Warlock.
it's destroyed in the MCU, the main MCU timeline, then I don't know if that means they're just dead within, unless they bring unless they steal a Soul Stone from an alternate timeline again.
Again.
Right.
It is interesting that talking about this last episode, that you see Wanda, she gets her kids effectively taken away from her, and in the comics, something very similar to that happened. But in the comics, it was revealed that her kids were actually fragments of Mephisto, who is, for all sakes and purposes, Marvel's devil. So I think a lot of fans were really hyping up way too much to happen in this show. Like, after I watched the episode, I went online and I'm like, okay, well, now that I can read spoilers since I've seen it, what are people thinking? And I encountered a lot of people that were really bashing on this, that, oh, well, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, they didn't bring in the mutants, they didn't do this. And it's like, they never said they were going to do any of this stuff. I think a lot of it was, people saw Evan Peters and, Keenan, like you were saying earlier, you, Ian, and I pretty much all had the same thought, is, oh, Fox X-Men are here now. Well, we come to find out this, we found out last episode that not only was this guy not even Pietro, he wasn't even Quicksilver, he was Ralph, the guy that Agnes has mentioned this whole time.
Yeah, well, Ralph Boner.
Boner. I chuckled at that line, but it
I
was
think-
literally
I
a
think
random dude.
Right. I think
I-
everybody with our mentality probably chuckled at that line.
I get that.
Ralph.
I agree as well that the show, like most other Marvel things, is only a small piece of a larger story, and so
Marvel
it does
has
a
always
good
done it that
job.
way.
Right. That's always been the MCU's MO, and
Yes.
it works really well. It's a good way of being able to tell stories that are self-contained, but also help set up teasers and also, show that it is a shared universe that,
Yep.
Effects and impacts of other things impact this one particular story. And so I think the show did a good job of setting up things, and it did give answers to a lot of things. A lot of things that were mentioned and brought up were either not fully addressed or
Yeah.
fully answered. And I think that frustrates people, but they just got to realize that the payoff is going to come just in something later because it's Marvel's thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I will say that the Evan Peters thing, though, kind of upset me just because
Yeah.
it basically was sort of a gotcha. Don't show an actor who prominently played a character that could be brought in to this, to show this potentiality of the X-Men coming in, and then basically turn it into a dick joke. While funny, it was a little bit of a trolly move,
Well,
in my
I
opinion.
mean,
Especially
there's
since-
multiple things that could. Sorry, I mean, there's still a possibility, right? Because just like in the comics, when Wanda's kids are taken away, she famously utters the phrase "No more mutants," and then that leads into House of M, where most of the world's mutants are depowered or no longer mutants. Which then leads them to figuring out how to bring back mutants, and still a lot of people are even though they were former mutants, they still don't have their powers back. Jubilee is one of those famous ones. She was admittedly a kind of a write-off character. Ooh, you can make fireworks, what do you do? She was kind of a write-off character, but she was depowered, but still wind up working as a superhero using technology. And then even after the events of House of M, when probably I think half of the mutants came back, she was still depowered, but still continues to work as a superhero. So my point being is that there's still a possibility with the multiverse of madness that we could see those characters wind up in the MCU through basically a melding and meshing of these different universes. Not quite Secret Wars level where Doctor Doom, I think he steals the Odin Force and then creates like an amalgamated universe
Battle World, is that what it was called?
Something like that,
Yeah.
where basically he is the supreme ruler of this universe.
Yeah.
Which I mentioned Secret Wars. I believe the next Avengers movie has been titled Avengers Secret Wars.
I'm down.
I know that there was a show announced called Secret Invasion.
Maybe it was Secret Invasion,
but isn't the Secret Invasion storyline about like a Skrull invasion, which would be interesting.
Yes, because the Skrulls take over. The Skrulls are slowly taking over superheroes.
Yep.
Right, but the Skrulls are nice in the MCU though, so that
I'm going to call it now. The Skrulls, apart from shapeshifting, the Skrulls' only power is telling you exactly what you want to hear to gain your trust so that they can infiltrate your society. They did it in the comics. I'm calling it now. The whole thing about Skrulls being good, Marvel would not change something that central to so many of their stories just to have a cool alien sidekick in Captain Marvel. I'm calling it now. The Skrulls are still evil.
Well, I don't know.
I sound like J. Jonah Jameson. I'm going to tell you now, listeners.
Right. I don't
think
know
that'd be a
though,
good
because
twist.
I mean they
I'm not opposed to
completely
it.
Would be.
They basically rewrote how Captain Marvel got her powers, because she was powered by the crystal thing, I believe, right?
The Shi'ar crystal?
She was powered by the Shi'ar crystal, which is a Kree artifact, I believe, in the comic books.
Yeah.
Whereas
I don't remember mainstream Kree being like bad.
They weren't. They weren't necessarily bad.
She had a blood transfusion from the original Captain Marvel, who was a Kree. I mean, granted, she may have. There's so many different origins of characters.
I think that was the Ultimates universe of her. I think she had a blood transfusion. But in the 616 universe, I believe she's powered by the Shi'ar crystal, which is a Kree artifact that she received her powers from. In the MCU, she receives her power from the Space Stone.
Yep.
Is that it?
Yeah. It was. Yeah, it was like a light speed engine that they were creating using the Tesseract.
Right. So she's powered by one of the Infinity Stones, which is how she is able to go toe to toe with Thanos until she gets punched in the face.
Right.
But we're seeing all of these characters are kind of coming out of nowhere that are being powered by Infinity Stones. I mean, at this point, I'm waiting for Nova to show up and being powered by the ether or something like that. Who knows? Although the Xandar had the Power Stone, so
it's entirely possible they could have used it.
Very possible.
Which Nova was, I think originally they were going to have Nova be in one of the prior MCU movies instead of the Nova Corps like we got in Guardians. But for whatever reason, it was nixed at the last minute because they wanted to do something else with him.
Yeah, possibly. But I mean, we're still waiting for the reveal of Adam Warlock and
we've
all
been
this.
waiting
But
since Guardians 1. But anyway.
Right. Well, we have entered a non sequitur all the way out into beyond left field and somewhere off into the parking lot.
We're not even in the same state at this point.
Pretty much. So, kind of bringing it back to WandaVision, we're really seeing the what I thought was, and this is how we know that Agatha is going to come back at some point, because she's not killed.
Yeah.
She is placed into a position that Wanda can access her whenever she wants, and really nobody knows that she's there. Like, I'm trying to remember the episode in my head. I don't think Monica Rambeau was in the area at the time, or if she was, she isn't shown to have acknowledged it. No, she is in the area. That's right, but it's just not shown that she acknowledges that. Um, that Wanda places, basically memory locks Agatha into thinking that she is Agnes. Um, so
Which,
Wanda has access to this centuries-old witch at any time that she wants.
speaking of that scene where she memory locks her, did you guys get the impression that while she's locked into the casting role of nosy neighbor, she's still very much aware of what Wanda did, just in the way she said her lines? Oh.
There was a look in her eyes that to me showed like pain/anger, despite
Yeah.
and her smile felt forced. So I think most of the people within the WandaVision show, you kind of got hints of that, such as
Well, especially
when
the
the
first episode.
wife, yeah, like when the wife of her
Stop
husband
it.
is Mr.
Stop
Hart is
it.
choking, yeah. Her face said one thing, but her eyes said another thing. So I think she's at least powerful enough or something to be able to somewhat emote her real personality.
Which the line that got me on that was, "I'll see you around, Agnes. Not if I see you first, hun."
Right,
like,
yeah.
Oh, it was like she wants another piece of that.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, that was really cool, and that character is gonna make an appearance again at some point, which is good,
Well,
because
a
again,
side thought on that. Like you had mentioned, she wasn't killed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the only other like main movie villain that wasn't killed was Baron Zemo, who is coming back in their next show, Falcon and Winter Soldier, that comes out in a couple weeks. That's the only other one, right?
I mean, technically, Abomination is still alive and he's on the raft.
Yeah.
Justin Hammer is still alive and also probably on the raft.
I mean, it's
And
Justin Hammer. I mean,
yeah, I mean, he's not like a threat, but technically he was a villain.
that's
And then
okay.
also, very technically, which I really want him to come back in some form because I super love the character and I would like him to be played
know
up
who you're
even
talking
more
about.
sinisterly, would be Red Skull.
Yeah, which I mean, we know he's still out there somewhere.
And I mean, he's free of having to guard the Soul Stone, so he can
Yeah, but we don't know.
leave.
We don't know what his corporal state is, though. Like, he seems to be almost like a specter that is bound to. Like, maybe now that the Soul Stone doesn't exist, maybe he doesn't exist anymore. I don't know.
I did read in a thing because I was looking up the Red Skull the other day just randomly, and I read that the actor who did the voice of Red Skull in Infinity War, his name is Ross Marquand because they didn't get Hugo Weaving obviously to come back.
Which is a shame.
He was yes. I also read in that same thing. This is very tangential as well, but perfect. You're not sequiturs. So real quickly, Hugo Weaving apparently would like to come back as the Red Skull, but apparently the contract negotiations with Disney just like annoyed him. And he said that if they could just iron a couple things out, he would very gladly come back because he doesn't necessarily enjoy big franchises, but he enjoyed being the Red Skull. So there is a possibility that if they just work something out, he would very happily return as Red Skull.
I mean, to be fair, Disney worked out something with Robin Williams 8 years after Aladdin to get him to come back. To get him to come back for Aladdin.
And Robin Williams had much more of a reason. Yeah, true. But he had much more of a reason to be pissed off than Hugo Weaving does, apparently. But anyway, the actor that did the voice of Red Skull in Hugo Weaving's place in Infinity War, apparently the Russo brothers told him that once the Soul Stone was taken away, that he was free and that he could do what he wanted. And apparently they told him that maybe he might pop up in something. So I don't know if that was the Russo brothers potentially wanting to bring Red Skull back, since they did direct, I believe they did Civil War, and they might have done Winter Soldier as well. So anyway, they have history with the Captain America.
Right.
That's obviously where Red Skull appeared. So I don't know if they were potentially thinking of that or if that was just something from Kevin Feige. But I will say that at least based off of that, the Red Skull is not dead. He's not gone just because the Soul Stone is gone, and that he is a free, active agent to do whatever evil
Okay.
things he wants to do.
I
I
could
mean,
roll with that.
that's fair. I like that Kevin Feige and Marvel are keeping their options open for these characters. You're also, Keenan, forgetting about one of the characters that received the absolute most injustice, um, which
It
was
hurts me.
which was
I
the Mandarin, played
yeah,
by Ben
yeah,
Kingsley,
the
who's
Trevor Slattery really is
But
the
I mean, we're
character.
getting the real Mandarin though in Shang-Chi.
Right. So that's kind of why I ignored that because he's just an actor and he's probably not even on the raft. He's probably just in a regular like max security prison.
Well, I think
We're getting
last you saw him, he was in the same prison as
Oh, he is in the
Scor-
same one as
Scor-
Justin Hammer
y-
and
y-
the
and Scorpion from Spider-Man, isn't he?
Scorpion,
Vulture.
Well,
Vulture.
well, he didn't actually become Scorpion, but he's got the big scorpion.
Oh
tail.
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, I know
Yep.
what you're talking about. The character.
But
He didn't really become the Scorpion, but the same character.
yeah, but at the end of that little one shot, you see him being interviewed by what he thinks is a TV reporter, only to find out he's an actual agent of the Mandarin, and says something along the lines of, "The Mandarin would like to speak to you."
Right. Yeah, I forgot about that one shot. But yeah,
Which
and you
was
also
good.
mentioned that real Mandarin is coming into
Yeah.
Shang-Chi. I would have liked it if he appeared in actual Iron Man, but
Because
I
we're not
guess
going to get a fight with Mandarin and Iron Man now.
no.
Which,
Yeah,
which is,
I mean, not in the traditional sense, but I mean, Robert Downey Jr. has said he'd be willing to come back if they wanted to do some kind of weird time travel tomfoolery. Maybe they'll multiverse of madness him back somehow. I don't know. Anyway, so
Anyway,
kind
I
of
will just say that to go back to your point of bringing up Agatha, though, to bring it back, is that I do think it's nice that they kept a character that is fairly interesting, and we still know very little about her,
Right.
really. So getting to know her more is nice, and it's nice to keep that option open because Marvel has a bad tendency of either having underwhelming villains or having villains that are cool but then they die.
yeah.
So
But yeah,
Yeah.
it is nice that they're keeping her in the in their back pocket just in case. It is nice.
right. So I mean, along with Agatha, obviously the other thing was that we had White Vision versus Soulstone Vision, and Soulstone Vision basically stops White Vision with a very
They get into
very
a philosophy. Wow,
Velociraptor.
Clever girl. No, they get into a philosophy discussion, which is very on point for Vision. Like at first, it was really cool seeing Vision fight Vision, but to have the battle ended over a philosophical question, I thought was so on point for that character. That was
Yes,
a great
especially the way they've done it. So I mean, we see Soulstone Vision unlock the memories of White Vision, which
is made from his actual body.
right, and so and he even says your memories aren't gone; they're just hidden away from you, and then allow me to open them up for you. So he does, and he gets his memories back. But I guess one of the things that kind of sticks in my craw though is the fact that like White Vision gets all of his memories back, and then immediately pisses off into nowhere while the love of his life is currently in a battle for her life.
Which makes me wonder, like, he had to have a good reason to leave. And I just want to point out the fact that Vision brought himself back to life, effectively. I thought that was a really nice touch. But
yeah.
no, like, you bring up a valid point. He had to have a really good reason to leave, which makes me wonder, what did he go do?
Here are my thoughts on that too. So I didn't even think about him having a good reason, but I think that actually they'll probably work into that. They'll probably say that he had a reason. From just a simple like storytelling point, I think they just didn't want. They wanted to have the moment where Wanda accepts that the Vision is dead.
Right.
So because I mean the whole show is obviously, at least to me, is pretty symbolic of just the process of grief.
Oh, very much
and
so. Very
Wanda
much so.
trying to accept that. So she needed to have a moment to accept the death of Vision and see him die in a way, at least the Soul Stone version.
Yeah, because
And
her,
so,
her version of Vision never mentioned that. Oh, by the way, my body's back and floating around somewhere.
yeah, he is. So as far as she knows, Vision is dead. She needs to have that moment of self healing.
Yeah, she
So
Yeah,
I
needs that
think
but
closure.
but
getting
here's
Vision to do that and like come back and be like, oh hey, I'm alive. It takes away that
Yeah.
to me, and so I think they just wrote him as needing to go away in order to keep that. And then also you could say that perhaps that even though his memories are back, they're not really. I mean, he died, and maybe he just needed time to process that and be his own person.
Right.
And so he just wanted to maybe fly away and kind of work things out.
The fact that
I agree that it
he can't
feels,
die in the traditional sense, but he did cease.
yeah, and I think it does bring into question why he wouldn't go to help Wanda, you would assume. But also, you could think of it as that maybe he was reborn, and that yes, these are his memories, but he didn't live through them, so he maybe doesn't even have as much of an emotional attachment to Wanda
That's a
because he
good
didn't
point.
live through them. They're just
He remembers it, but it
recollections of
wasn't
things.
him.
Yeah,
this is
in a
very
sense.
true. This is very true. But I want to kind of circle back to a point that you made about Wanda accepting the death of Vision, and maybe that is actually the end of her acceptance. But they kind of almost reversed that point with the second
They
end
do.
credit scene
Yeah.
where Wanda is hearing her children while reading the Necronomicon, and basically what they imply is that she's trying to find a way to bring them back. So I kind of wonder how truly accepting is she of these kind of things. Like maybe she's accepting of the fact that she did a bad thing by enslaving Westview, which I will say this, nice little fun little Easter egg for the three of us because we all went to a high school known as Westview.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was a fun little nod to us. I think Keenan, you and I, when we watched the first episode together, were like, hey, cool. Anyway, so you know, I don't know how much I don't know where that line of acceptance ends, and I feel like I don't know, something about that mentality with the way they truly ended this show with Wanda's really not acceptance of reality.
I think
It's
it's a
Yes.
mixed bag. Maybe she has a imperfect acceptance. I mean, it just I think it would be a little too nice and tidy if she just fully was like, "Oh, okay, I accept all this." She's went through a lot of trauma, and so
Yeah.
I think it's
Now,
difficult for her to fully accept it. And also, you could read it as that her reading the Darkhold was her just trying to learn about the Scarlet Witch and her powers. And while reading it, she then suddenly heard the voices of her kids, and that triggers a moment of, oh shit, maybe they do exist. Maybe I can save them. Maybe I can bring it. And so that maybe pulls away her ability to accept because she has this thought that maybe there is a true way to bring them back.
see, now that's how I took the last scene. Is that she was showing off her new astral projection powers, which is the best way to describe it. But anytime, like in Doctor Strange, we saw astral projection, their body just kind of sat there. She was moving around the cabin while astral projecting, which I want to point out is something that Doctor Strange cannot do. But no,
Right.
that's how I took that last scene. Is that she was reading the Darkhold, trying to learn, and then like when she hears her kid's voice, to me the look on her face was, no, that can't be them. What is this? Like she looks
Like,
shocked
or
that she
I'm gonna
heard
go
them.
get them. She looks shocked and like
Yeah.
mad or like ready to go.
So yeah, that's how I took that last scene. Is that she wasn't
that's sort of
looking for the kids. The kids found her. But again, knowing some of the mythos behind like Doctor Strange and the Magic Realm in Marvel Comics, was that really the voices of her kids?
Right, they could have been a trick. It could be,
Yep.
Nightmare, Mephisto, some other,
MODOK.
extra dimensional deity, Shumagorath, who knows? Somebody,
Oh, I forgot about Shumagorath.
um,
Sheogorath.
One of my favorite
Are we gonna
characters
see?
from
Are we going to see the appearance of the Wabbajack?
the
that'd be
Wabbajack.
great. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of the Marvel vs. Capcom game, so
Oh, yeah, I was
that's how
gonna
I know
say-
Shumagorath. I know him less from the
Same.
comics.
That was one of the characters I liked playing as.
Yeah, he was fun.
Yep. But no, yeah, that's how I took the last that last scene. But the mid credit scene I thought was kind of cool because you see Agent Wu, which before I forget, one of the biggest unanswered questions we didn't get: who was Agent Wu's missing person?
Right, and it's like at
Because
this
that was
point
the
it
whole
almost
reason
was.
he showed up, and they just
Maybe that was,
it was
Ralph Boner. It was Ralph. Maybe that
he
Ralph
was
Boner.
looking for a boner.
Yeah, Ralph Boner.
Boner.
Yeah,
But no,
he
the
was when he was hanging out with Darcy. Heyo.
hey,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
it's Kat Dennings. I don't blame
yeah.
him.
We don't.
She
The
is a
audience
very,
knows. If they know what Kat Dennings looks like, they know.
she is a very talented and quite lovely woman.
Yes,
With
But the
huge tracts of land.
you had to go
and and honestly, famously, underrepresented in underrepresented and undercast, because I think she's very talented and she plays characters well. She's kind of like the, I don't know, more loud spoken version of Zoe Deschanel. Like Zoe Deschanel always kind of plays the awkward,
Yeah, it's
awkward,
quirky.
quirky type.
Yeah.
Kat Dennings kind of always plays the awkward, quirky, intelligent type.
right.
So yeah,
Yeah, but no,
But
the mid credit scene, you see, Wu and the FBI are cleaning stuff up, and an agent comes up to Monica Rambeau and says, "Hey, they want to see you in the theater. They've got questions or whatnot." So she leads her in there, and there's no one in the theater. The agent steps forwards and gasped, "Is a scroll," and says, "An old friend of your mom's wants to speak to you." Well, where are they? And she points up, alluding to the space station that we last saw Nick Fury on, obviously in space, full of scrolls.
right.
which is probably to serve as a setup for whenever Captain Marvel 2 comes out.
Yep, exactly.
Because speaking of seeing the kids manifesting powers, I was going to mention this when it was brought up earlier. It was also cool to see her powers manifest, such as how she, phased, had bullets kind of phase through her, and she slowed them down and did a couple other things. So
Well,
she's
like when
clearly
she was in that
transforming into her photon character.
yeah, or like when she was dealing with being stuck in that room with Ralph, who we still see. We know that he's not Pietro, but still has his super speed. She uses like her photon vision or whatever to see the energy coming off that necklace he's got, and you see it emanating that purple magic that Agatha uses. She rips it off, and he immediately reverts back to Ralph Boner. Boner. So
I mean, he doesn't ever really say his name though, other than making the boner joke. But I mean, so even that could be a magicked up faux identity or something.
Right.
It's just
like you see a picture of him, and it says his name beneath of it, and she's like, that's where that line is coming from. Your name's Ralph Boner.
Right. Which was weird. It was like a headshot almost. So
yeah. So is he an actor? But I mean, you see once she rips that necklace off him, you see a complete personality change.
Yeah.
Although I
was very timid.
Yeah, it's like, don't hurt me, I beg you. But
yeah. I mean, again, if he's acting or trying to play,
it's Trevor Slattery again. He's just an actor.
No.
God damn it.
So they
actually,
pulled a Mandarin on us, didn't they?
A fun fan theory that I read was that the headshot was actually part of a packet for his new identity, and that he's the witness protection person that we was looking for.
I was wondering if that was the case, because like they never address him, like when they did that scene or the episode earlier on where they're discovering who all these people in Westview actually are. They didn't address him. Partially because they didn't want to spoil that, hey, Evan Peters is going to be in this show. But I'm wondering, I was kind of thinking the same thing. Is he the missing person?
The only thing I would say that would discredit it is that Jimmy Woo was also watching the episode in which he appeared, and you would think that he might have said something, or done something to show recognition. So either the person that he was looking after is either a red herring or a MacGuffin that really doesn't matter at all, or that's something to be revealed later.
Right.
And that's just one of the many unanswered things in the show that would be cool to get addressed, but it wasn't. So that's hopefully going to come. sometime. I'm not sure in what property it would come up in, but
Right. Because I mean, I know, I mean, ultimately, for the grand scope of this show, it doesn't matter. But it's one of those things that it irks me. Like I know they probably wanted the reason, to have that character back, and I like the fact that after you first see him in Ant-Man, he's picked up card tricks, he's picked up escape artist
yeah,
kind of things. I think that's a nice nod to the growth of that character of Agent Wu. But I mean, ultimately, it's Marvel. Any little thing they drop is to get their fans talking, and they've done a phenomenal job of it for over 10 years now. So the fact that he was brought there to find a missing person in this town, but then they don't actually answer that's that could have been a throwaway line, but it seems almost too intentionally placed,
yeah.
for me,
The level
to
of
be a
detail
throwaway.
in any MCU thing to me, like all the background references and stuff
Yeah,
that they
everything
do.
means something.
So I wouldn't put him against them. Speaking of another throwaway detail that didn't get payoff that
Yeah.
could be huge is the Monica's friend that designed her rover vehicle thing to go
Dude,
into the Hex.
I don't
Because
know
we
if you
see
guys saw, once they announced that, the internet was blowing
it,
up
it
with speculation.
exploded.
Like,
It
oh my
was
god,
it was
Reed
Reed
Richards!
or Blue Marvel.
Yeah, which would have been
And
another great tie-in.
and then I think one that was interesting that I saw was that the army person she talked to was the actual engineer, but it was a scroll.
See, I had read that one as well. To me, that makes the most sense, especially, given
Given the mid-credit
Monica's,
scene, yeah.
yeah, and given Monica's background of who she is. That would have made the most sense. Just like some of the I don't remember the exact wording, but there was a line, she had mentioned something about her mom.
Yeah, the army person was like, I respected your mom, or she had some kind of connection.
Yeah.
So I think that might be what the case is, or even if that person herself wasn't a scroll, it still could have been designed by scrolls. Obviously, they're a spacefaring race; they would know how to construct advanced rovers.
Exactly. Yep.
But it would be cool. It would be interesting if it was Reed Richards. I think another way they could have tied into Reed Richards was like way back in the throwback episode with when Monica first comes back to Sword. They mentioned that some people are still MIA because they blipped while they were out in space,
Yeah.
and perhaps that one of the space teams would be the Reed and Susan and Gray, the whole
Yeah.
the whole shebang. So
That could be kind of a cool thing, because I mean,
so that could be a rework of their origin, kind of. It would sort of be, maybe them blipping back, in space or whatever, and
and it's
coming
where
back with,
whatever ship or space station they were in was at the time. But now they're floating in
yeah,
space. They get hit by cosmic rays, not being protected by any kind of enclosure. Boom! You got yourself a group of 4 fantastic people. The
yeah,
Fantastic
that
Four,
that
if you
could be how
will.
they do it. um, and plus, I mean, that movie's already confirmed to be, in the works. So
Yep.
I think that could be a potential. I thought that could have been a little potential Easter egg that I think would work
That could be a
well.
nice payoff down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
there's definitely a lot of possibility there, and I think ultimately WandaVision I felt like did a great job of bridging the gap between the end of Endgame
Mm-hmm.
and the next phase of the MCU, which I believe is Phase 4, isn't it?
guess
Of the
yeah,
MCU. So
Yes.
we get a
I
we
can't
we
remember. It's either that or 5. I can't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, but I mean, we got some answers to some questions. We kind of understand, you know, how these different agencies are working. Sword is a thing which really wasn't mentioned all that much in the previous MCU.
Right.
Um, we get
Well, it sounds like it
Monica.
started pretty close to when Infinity War ended.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm assuming, and it's been mostly operating in the 5 years we didn't see, is kind of the vibe I got. So,
Right.
but
Now,
yeah, still, we didn't get that much info on
Right, but remember Monica was part of Sword and her mother was the director of it, so the understanding is at least it was around enough between
Yeah.
but
it
it
would have had to
would have been around a little bit before, at least before
Yeah.
yeah,
Infinity War.
it would have
because-
had to have been before Infinity War because with her mother, passing away. Well, she passed away during the blip, so she was probably
Oh,
sick.
during that time period.
Yeah, and it's mentioned that Monica, well, obviously Monica was in the hospital with her mom, which would have
True.
been before the blip, and the blip, the snap, whatever you want to call it at this point, which means that her mother would have had to have been in Sword even before that, as would Monica has. So it would have had to have been before Infinity War.
Yeah,
Right.
or I guess either way, we could just. I mean, they're obviously not as old of an organization as
As
Shield
yeah.
would have been. I mean, they would have been started at the earliest in like the mid to late 90s,
Right.
because that's when Captain Marvel started. So perhaps we could just agree that they haven't been really addressed, and maybe the reason is that they just weren't as relevant or big of an organization until Shield collapsed.
Yeah, fair
So,
point.
Right.
But I will say, like,
As-
talking about the blip, I do think that WandaVision did a better job of showing the effect of people coming back from that, because like we saw kind of a snippet of it in well, I mean, obviously in Endgame we see all those people coming back for the big final battle, but in Far From Home, they show, like, in the school news thing, you see that
Yeah.
trombone player pop up in the middle of a basketball game, and you're like, oh, haha, funny. But then you see, the scene in WandaVision where the hospital just erupts into chaos from, patients are just appearing in the halls, people that were visiting, staff are just reappearing, and it's just chaos. Nobody knows what's going on, which brought up an interesting fan question I had seen. What about people that were snapped on airplanes?
So
Yeah,
Keenan and I
Ian and
actually
I
talked
talked about
this.
that, yeah.
Do they
Yeah,
do they appear? I mean, what was Hulk snap that I want everybody back safe, or just I want
So,
everybody back?
apparently the Russos and Kevin Feige said that specifically he wished for people to return as they were from 5 years ago, but safely. So if you were in a plane or in space or something, I guess Ian and I thought they would just be teleported to whatever is the nearest safe landmass that they could stand.
Which would make sense. I mean, because otherwise, you're just gonna be walking around like, oh my god, all these people are reappearing, and then people start falling out of the sky, which
Right.
would be
Yeah.
horrible.
It's basically fuel for a robot chicken sketch.
I mean,
I
it
made a
really
joke
is.
that someone would be on like a public bathroom, like on a toilet, and then someone just spawns on them in like mid shit. That's what I kind of.
Of course. I'm wondering about all these poor people falling out of the sky, and you're like, what if somebody poops on me?
Well, I mean, like that would be safe. They're not in
Well,
danger,
or,
so they would come back there.
And Matt, another horrible situation. Your husband or wife, they disappeared 5 years ago in the blip. You've finally gotten over their loss. You've remarried. You're laying in your bed one night. I'm gonna keep it somewhat PG, sleeping for work the next morning, and your presumed gone husband or wife just pops up in between you and your new partner. Well, this is
Right.
awkward. Well, I mean, we're all here.
Right. So I kind of want to jump back to something because a quick Google search in the MCU, apparently Sword has been around since 1995 in the MCU.
Which is
Okay.
after
All right.
Captain Marvel.
Like immediately after Captain
Yeah,
Marvel.
which would
Right.
make
So
sense.
Sword was founded by Maria Rambeau after 1995 under the U.S. government. In 2010, apparently there's a deleted scene in Thor where Jane Foster postulates the Foster theory that bridges are actually just wormholes in different dimensions, and from there, Sword granted Eric Selvig access to their databases so they can cross-reference astrophysics reports with Shield, and then from there, then that's the last time they're really mentioned in the MCU until 2000 and 2020, when 2020 being the year of Infinity War or esque Infinity War slash Endgame, where Maria Rambeau succumbed to cancer and Tyler Hayward takes over. And that's really kind of the last final mentions of Sword as they were before.
Gotcha.
So apparently in the MCU they've been around for a while. They just haven't been used as a vehicle for anything for a long time.
Gotcha. Okay.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Also, to kind of go back to something that you were getting to as well, and kind of as a question to both of you. So, I mean, we've talked about a lot of the many different references and things that are being set up within WandaVision, and how, like any other MCU property, we're fine with that. We expect that and enjoy that. But as a self-contained story, what do you guys think? Did you enjoy WandaVision as its own limited series? Basically, like a long movie. Did you think that own individual story, without all the Easter eggs and references to other things, just as itself, did you enjoy it?
As the Scarlet Witch movie, absolutely.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I felt like it did it itself and its universe justice. It was a good, fun take on things. Obviously, it kind of 180'd and went really dark after like 4 episodes, but I mean that was really half of its run, so
Right.
sure, why not? But no, I thought it went well. I thought it felt good. Um, I wasn't underwhelmed. I wasn't really overwhelmed. I was just whelmed.
Nice, nice Teen Titans reference there, Ian.
Yes.
I am
For
well.
me, it, for me, it, yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't say it was my favorite MCU property, but I think it was it's like mid to upper mid tier among the different things. I think it was a very interesting take. It took from a lot of different stories, like House of M. It borrowed a lot of different elements of that. It borrowed elements from a like limited series Wanda Vision comic book that I didn't know about. Apparently, like West Coast ones. It took two characters that I think are cool, but were very criminally underused in the movies thus far, and made them much more interesting to me. Like their romance felt a little quick and vaguely forced in the movies, but this show helped make that much more real and validated to me. And gave these characters and the actors, I like Paul Bettany a lot, and
Oh, yeah.
Elizabeth Olsen I've grown to like a lot. So it gave them a lot more screen time and ability to show off their acting. So that was cool. And I think just as a show too, I think it was clever and fun that it was Marvel's first TV show, and it was a TV show. Like it was a TV show within a TV show. It was very
Right.
meta and self-referential to television itself, and I thought that was kind of cool that they went with their first TV show being a TV show.
Right.
And it was a cool exploration of grief as well, so I thought that was neat. So yeah, as a whole, I really liked how it redeemed characters that weren't super interesting or didn't get enough due, and then had all these other references that I think built up its theme and
I
story.
think one thing that you mentioned about being a standalone property, quote unquote, at this point, I do tend to disagree with that. We are 10 plus years into the MCU, and again, if you haven't seen any of the movies, you're either 8 years old or have been living under a rock or in Amish country for
Hey.
the last X number of years. You're on the edge. You don't kind of count.
Fair
Anyway,
enough.
so at this point, Marvel is not making standalone anything. They have built this connected universe over the last 10 years and umpteen dozen films, and you can't approach anything that Marvel does in the MCU at this point as a standalone film. You're just not going to understand half of it. You're not going to know the backstory. Like maybe the Ant-Man stuff, I guess, okay, but there's still kind of tie-ins to other things.
Yeah.
Now,
But you
kind of.
can't come in.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's good. I shouldn't say you can't. It's going to be very difficult for you to come in and start trying to watch really anything that was made within the last I don't know, 3-4 years in the MCU, because there's just so much that it was built off of.
I agree.
Right.
I agree to a point now. Like, my wife, she enjoys the Marvel films. I have seen every single one of them. She has not. She has watched WandaVision with me every single week and has absolutely enjoyed it. Then we spend like an hour talking about it. She has a passing familiarity with the MCU and still enjoyed it. So, I think that while everything is interconnected, I think that if somebody sat down and, they had not watched a single MCU film and watched WandaVision, a couple episodes in, they will get, the gist of, okay, well, these two were heroes. This guy's supposed to be dead. She can shoot energy or something. And then by the end of it, they're like, okay, well, she's some kind of witch. He's a dead robot who's not a dead robot. I think that somebody with no knowledge could still sit down and enjoy this show for what it is and maybe use it as a gateway to, okay, well, now I want to know more about, okay, well, why did this guy die? Okay, well, it was in this film. Okay, well, that's a sequel to this film. Oh, well, this film is built off of stuff from this. And while that may be a little overwhelming to somebody that may not have watched these properties, I do think that WandaVision is a good starting point, maybe for people that are new to the MCU. I kind of liken it to a reboot. Marvel and DC both are. They've done countless reboots. They've restarted their continuity to make it easier for people that maybe haven't read in a while or have never read a comic to get back into them. And I think WandaVision would be a good starting point for anybody that hasn't gotten into these films, or maybe they watched the first Iron Man, first Thor, and haven't really watched anything since then. It might be a good jump off point for them.
Really?
I
I thought
with
DC restarted their universe as an excuse to keep killing more Robins.
Well,
nah.
you can never kill too many Jason Todds.
Yeah. I agree with both of you, by the way, though, in your stance. I do think that there was enough background information given in a not so exposition heavy kind of way that someone with limited or passing knowledge can watch the show and get it. And I also think that it does clearly have its own story that you can enjoy that isn't overly connected to other things. Like it's obviously self-contained enough that you can still appreciate it as its own thing. But I also agree with Ian in the essence too that the real core of that story too, and a lot of the things in it that would just greatly enrich your understanding and make it have that full impact that you would really, really want to get it. And the fact that it is going to be obviously a part of just a larger narrative anyway, that you don't need to have seen the other stuff, but man, you are missing out on a butt ton of things
It
and
wouldn't hurt to
emotional
see those
impact if you
things.
don't. Like
I
it to me, it would be weird, and it almost to the point of that it's almost pointless to me if you hadn't seen the other stuff. But I do think you could still enjoy it. It's like, I don't know. It would be like if you were eating McDonald's your whole life and that's what you thought a cheeseburger would be like, and then you ate a cheeseburger from like anywhere and you'd be like, oh my god, this
Literally
is what a
anywhere else.
cheeseburger is. Like literally anywhere else it's like, oh my god, this is good, this is what it is. So it's like, yeah, you enjoyed it, but if you get the whole wider scope of it, it's really going to impact the effect it has on you.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment. I think the MCU at this point is probably on a 70-30 ratio where the content is really geared. They fill the content enough so that it's towards 70% of the people that have been following the MCU for a long amount of time, or at least have seen everything up to that point. And there's enough content that can keep newbies entertained, that 30% entertained if they go in and watch it fresh.
I think it's actually made 70, 29, and 1, and the 1% are for people who are so hardcore MCU fans and comic fans that it's made for those people that will notice every tiny minutia and reference and things that could possibly under the sun.
Right. Yeah, I would concur on that. So, I mean, all in all, I think if I can summarize our general opinion of WandaVision, solid show. I would probably give it myself an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah,
Not the
I'm feeling
best
about that.
thing. Not the best thing, certainly. It's no Firefly, but it's definitely a solid show. Shut up! I'm still bitter. Um, so yeah. I mean, it was a good show. It was enjoyable. I really thought it opened. It serves as a gateway into the MCU, and it also serves as a gateway into the next phase of the MCU. And they do have some unanswered questions. Obviously, they have some unanswered questions. That's the whole point. You're setting us up for more. You're teasing us. You make us want to come back.
It's a
Marvel is in
J.J.
it.
Abrams mystery box that will actually be satisfied in the end.
See, now
Right.
I do agree with the solid 8 out of 10. My only complaint about the show, I feel like it should have been maybe 1 or 2 episodes longer, because the last episode, while it did kind of wrap everything up, it wasn't in the most tidy wrapping paper, if I must say. It seems like a lot of the plot points were rushed. I feel like they could have gotten a bit more dedicated screen time to these things. I'm not disappointed in the ending. I just feel that if maybe the show was even 1 episode longer, it could have flushed out stuff a little bit more, but I'm not disappointed.
Right. So I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of Evangelion the ending. Sans the creepy hospital scenes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and look it up.
Don't.
I will actually give the additional complaint that it kind of follows literally every superhero trope in narrative structure, of that it starts off with like cool, like sort of mystery and character building and really, focusing on that and, increasing stuff, but then always somehow ends with a giant CGI, like big, punchy rock'em sock'em robot sort of fight. And like, yes, you do
No, that
want
was Real Steel, starring Hugh Jackman.
yeah.
Huge
It-
Jackman.
Huge Jackman. But it, like, I want fight scenes and stuff, and I'm not saying that all CGI like giant boss battle kind of things are bad, such as the Endgame one is still fantastic, and I know Ian just like randomly plays that sometimes just because it's enjoyable, but sometimes the big CGI fight at the end isn't enjoyable. And I would say that the one in WandaVision to me was mostly satisfying, but it still kind of was just like, oh yay, we get the obligatory CGI fight at the
Well, I mean, it's worked for over 10 years now.
yeah.
If
I don't
they
know.
fix it,
Yeah,
Just
don't
but
maybe
I
fix it.
feel like
just
it
throw
was.
in more throughout, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, there was obviously CGI, but it still felt a little bit more practical than normal CGI. I mean, at least it was better than a completely animated green supersuit.
Yes.
Everything about that movie was wrong. Wrong. Every
Tim,
last
what's funny-
detail.
I wonder
What's
if
funny
it was.
is
I wonder if it was produced by UA Boll.
It
Good
couldn't
God.
have made
Tim,
it
what's
any
funny is-
worse.
as a non sequitur to that, I know how much you're a fan of that, and I went and saw that with one of my friends in theaters, and that's like his absolute favorite character. Like,
Yes.
he has tons of T-shirts, he has like figures, comic
Yes.
books. Like, that is by far his number one. And I remember sitting next to him and occasionally looking at him during the movie and watching the soul, like his very life force, ebb out of him, and like that was more enjoyable than the movie, which is really sad.
Like, they announced the movie, and I'm like, yeah, Green Lantern movie. Ryan Reynolds is in it. Ryan Reynolds is in it. This is gonna be the best thing ever. And then the opening credits happened, and it was all downhill from there. Damn it.
I think it was downhill from the moment that you paid for your ticket.
Yeah.
The popcorn was stale, the soda was flat, my seat had gum on it. Oh, this couldn't get any worse. Roll
As a fun
film.
fact,
Oh,
that
God.
same thing happened to
Damn
me
it.
when I watched Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That happened to me. I saw that in theaters with my dad, and I think Dad was looking at me and watching my life force drain out.
Yeah. Well, Anyway, I
I
think
could
we've.
do a whole episode of just me yelling about the Green Lantern film. I'm not
Do
going
that.
to,
It's
but I
podcast
could.
idea.
I actually I hung out with Tim around Christmas time, and we mentioned Green Lantern, and he for an hour he sat in his living room screaming. I don't know how he managed to breathe because I never heard him take a breath. It was just a continuous wail.
Sheer
It was
force
like
of willpower, something that movie didn't have.
it was like somebody had stepped on a banshee's crotch for an hour. Anyway, I'm kidding, but so yeah, I think that probably is going to do it for us on time this time around. But all in all, wrapping up WandaVision, great show, 9 episodes. You should go binge it if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it at this point, then we basically just ruined the show for you. So I don't know what the hell your problem is. But
They came to hear me complain about Green Lantern.
apparently it took it was a long build up. So
Long
WandaVision.
horrible delivery, just like Green Lantern.
Heyo, and your love life.
Ooh.
So Wanda. Tim's crying right now, so ignore him. WandaVision, great show.
Yes.
8.8 8.5 out of 10. Really excited to see what's next in the MCU, and looking forward to what Kevin Feige and Disney and Marvel have in store for us.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and you don't have to wait that long. We got a weekend. Next weekend, we're in a dead zone, but then after that, we got Falcon and the Winter Soldier coming out, which I'm pumped for. This show was really good. I'm really excited to see what a new genre, a new kind of cast and whatnot, how this is going to play out.
Which I will say, I was not excited about Falcon and Winter Soldier, but after having watched WandaVision, I want to watch Falcon and Winter Soldier now.
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah, so it was WandaVision was a good show, very solid, and a very solid reassurance, and that the Disney Plus shows are going to be good, and a good build up of what's to come.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, folks. Well, I think that's going to do it for us on time for today's episode. We thank you for joining us. We are not at all sponsored by Disney. We really wish we were, or Marvel, or Lucasfilm, or any of the other properties except for Green Lantern. We don't care if they want to. They don't have any money left over to sponsor us anyway. It's all going
spent it on the
toward
Snyder cut.
it's all going towards restitution against the people that actually paid to watch that movie.
Yeah.
That said, so thank you for your time. I want to extend a thank you to my brother Keenan for joining us again for yet another spoiler-filled special.
No
so
problem.
Thank you.
I always enjoy it. Invite me whenever you want. I always have fun sharing my own thoughts with you guys and my own non sequiturs.
Hey,
yes, exactly. And again, Keenan's got his own YouTube channel, video essays. His stuff's really fun. Back to the Future, Mass Effect. I think the one that you just released is about Ghost, and how that movie is absolutely terrifying and traumatizing. So check him out on YouTube. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever the hell they call their podcasting. I don't know.
I was gonna say, we're still waiting on Apple. If you're listening, we're still waiting. Can we get some approval, please?
They probably have to make you buy some kind of proprietary adapter before you can get on their thing.
Right.
The official microphone for your phone with a microphone in it.
Correct. Have you at this point in time owned every single Apple device that is released in the last 10 years? No. Well, then you're not approved. All right. Moving on. Anyway,
we're kidding, Apple. We love you. Host us,
please. So yes, thank you. Check us out on all those different channels. Anchor.fm is our main hosting site. Check us also out on nonsequiturnerds.com, where you can find links to all of our information there. Website updated weekly. We drop new episodes on Mondays. So come check us out. We appreciate the listens. We're not in this for the money, folks, but we wouldn't mind getting paid.
Ain't that the truth?
Support content creators. Do it.
Thank you, Keenan. Your $5 is in the mail, by the way.
Woohoo!
Ian, you mailed that $5, right? Good night, everybody.
All right, folks. So for Non Sequitur Nerds, we're signing off for tonight. I'm Ian.
I'm Tim. And that's Keenan.
And
I'm in the background.
Have a good
and
night,
we wish
everyone.
you all a great night.
Bye, everybody.